Hello, good evening, viewers. Thank you very much for joining us once again on DDM Live Guest Interview tonight. My guest tonight is Mr. Emeka Ugwuonye Esquire. Again, he's not a stranger to DDM Live interviews. And now we are doing the second lap of this very controversial topic. 1 month ago, DDM interviewed Mr. Emeka Ugwuonye on a burning issue on the social media. The burning controversy between DPA and Mrs. Mary Yul-Edochie on a matter that was very, very controversial. And now we want to welcome Mr. Ugwuonye to our program tonight. Mr. Ugwuonye, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Last time, during this interview, I was carefully watching people's reaction on DDM YouTube channel. It appears people has already taken sides. You see people praising you for, oh, you've spoken so well. You see other people who are very much rabid pro Mrs. Yul-Edochie supporters. Has that controversy abated, or what is the state of the relationship between DPA and Mrs. Yul-Edochie at the moment?
Well, I must say again that we were taken by surprise by the turn of events in that case. I have never seen any other subject that polarized our society more than this case. I had even gone back and asked myself repeatedly, what went wrong? How did we end up here? And why was this subject so controversial? I came up with a number of conclusions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you give us a brief, because maybe there are some people who are watching us now that has not had the opportunity to watch the previous program. Can you just give us a quick snapshot of the context of this, of this controversy?
Yeah. Yes. 3 years ago, when the case of Yul-Edochie and his wife broke on the stage of social media, DPA, as an advocacy organization, responded. The central issue at the beginning was that a well-known actor, someone highly respected and regarded among Nigerian youths, came out and announced that he was a proud polygamist. For us in DPA, we saw this as a threat to what we had fought for over the years. We had tried to fight for the rights of equality for women in Nigeria. If such a celebrity would suddenly come and proclaim polygamy, the new standards, it was something we needed to speak against. So we began to speak against. We said, no, it's not appropriate, it's not consistent with what we knew about equality. In the course of our advocacy, Mrs. Yul-Edochie got to know about us and came to us and retained our services to help her deal with the issue, and we began to represent her. We were combating her case from two angles. There was the social media side of it, the publicity side of it, what we may call the advocacy side of it, and the legal side of it. The legal side of it depended on the decision she would make, which was to divorce her husband. As that happened, the society remained polarized. A faction supported the husband and proclaimed that polygamy was wonderful. Then another section supported her and defended her rights. So in this division, DPA began to work for Mrs. Edochie. And the trolling and infighting and bullying between these two sides got out of hand to a point where it began to interfere with the legal cases pending in court. I say cases because while the divorce was pending, she had to initiate both a criminal action and a civil action on defamation and bullying against a supporter of her husband. This intensified, for more than 5 months we were on it. It got to the point where I realized that for her to win, we need to cut down on the trolling coming from her own side. Because when we are going to court, telling the court to punish people who were bullying her, however, her own supporters were doing more of the bullying against her husband and his new woman. To succeed in court, in any forum, we needed to make sure there wasn't reciprocal culpability, whereby the two sides were equally at fault. We didn't want that. I tried to bring down, to lessen the bullying from her own side. It required us to talk to her supporters. It required us to redirect the argument. Unfortunately, that did not work because her supporters turned against us and came after us with a very vicious trolling that even made their anger against the husband a little thing compared to the anger against us. It got out of hand. We expected her to make a statement or take any step to control her supporters. She refused to do so. She failed to do so, in which case we had no choice than to withdraw. Because at that time we perceived a conflict of interest. How could we be defending you, but we're your supporters? So we resigned, thinking it would bring the whole thing to a closure. Unfortunately, it wasn't it, because her supporters, doubled down and began to attack us, placing us in a position where we had to defend ourselves. Again, we warned her. We said, Madam, you really need to talk to these people because it would be unfortunate if we had to explain ourselves. In explaining ourselves, invariably, we will have to release some information that we would rather have kept calm, quiet. For instance, her supporters were saying that we withdrew because we took bribe from her husband. So in the absence, in giving her failure to try to control them or try to show support for us in any way, we had to explain to the people the real reason why we pulled out. And the real reason we pulled out was because the bullying from her side, from her supporter side, was totally unacceptable. It posed for us operational challenges as well as ethical challenges. So it was intense. I can't imagine. I've never seen anything like this. These people went out and attacked. They attacked my license. They exaggerated my problem with the bar. They claimed I was disbarred. And they were citing a letter, that old letter that Lombard.com did see in 2017, 2018, written by a junior staff of the Supreme Court, so which had no legal validity, nothing, no importance, except for social media sensations. So these people capitalized on it. All those old arguments, old lies, stories by Sahara reporters, they brought these things up and fabricated so much. It was quite damaging and annoying. So it was tense. We defended ourselves. It even got to a point where Mrs. Yul-Edochie now directly attacked us and defamed us. And of course, we had to defend ourselves. Each time we defended ourselves, she got hurt. I had no doubt. And but the trolling seems to have died down. The one thing we did, which continues to be questioned in terms of whether that was the best choice, was that we didn't keep quiet.
Yeah, that is where I'm about to go now, because we noticed that you decided to speak out to defend yourself. And then when we carried that interview, that decision surprised many to say, why would you come out publicly to speak against a former client? And they were wondering, would it not have been better simply to ignore them? What do you think?
Well, we actually ignored them for nearly a month. Elomba, we did. We didn't just jump in because we understood the implications. But my client, Ms. Yul-Edochie's side, had a very dangerous weapon they used. They used a particularly vicious person operating a fake account on social media. With a fake account, there was absolute state of lack of accountability. You couldn't know who to point at. You couldn't utilize the law of defamation or bullying against this person. It was inevitable that we had to act. Besides, I warned them several times of the consequences of us coming out to defend ourselves. And I was patient. I endured. But it was escalating. They were attacking me, attacking my family, attacking my staff, scaring my clients. And looking at what those people had done in the past, I knew that they would never stop until their opponent is completely dead. I saw what they did to Yul-Edochie, thoroughly pushing him out of Nollywood business, really. I saw what they did to Yvonne Jegede. I saw what they did to... They are terrorists, actually. People are scared of them. So I knew that if I kept quiet, these people would smell blood. They would never stop. And even if they stopped, it will only be for a while. They would have placed us in a position of continuous state of blackmail. Because if we did not address those allegations of me being this bad or me not being this, all you would have had would be, it will appear to calm down, and the next few months, somebody else would dredge up these things, ultimately to a point where you have to defend. So I stood my ground as a matter of principle that first and foremost, I have to calm down our members who were very worried about these stories. They needed explanation to them. So I had to make sure that we offered explanation that showed that these allegations against us were wrong and were driven by wrong motives. So explaining and reassuring our members was my primary objective. Secondly, as a matter of principle, it was high time somebody stood up and said to these trolls, it can't work that way. It was also important for us to send a message to Ms. Yul-Edochie. You have no security in silence when you have an obligation to speak out. She had an obligation to speak out, to state the truth, to save those who had worked for her, and not just keep quiet and watch them lynched in the street. So her silence, whatever she thought was her benefit, it was important to show that it was not her benefit. Next time she would have to speak up. So all those things combined, we had no choice than to speak out. And when we spoke, I am sure the message was clear, because what we did by speaking out was we gave them an option. We showed to them that each time they attacked us, the person they think that defended is going to suffer. So if not for out of sense of decency, they should consider the interest of the person that they represented. So we came out, and I can tell you that the consequences of the fight are not in her favor at all. It is very unfortunate it happened, but we hold them responsible for it. First, we hold her supporters responsible, but also we hold her responsible because she had every opportunity, even in a split second, she could have averted what happened. She could have stopped it. She could just have shown solidarity with us because we had suffered and worked hard for her. Her indifference, her cold and calculated indifference to our pain and suffering was unfortunate, and it left us no option than to fight. And we fought.
You have written to say that what happened to you amounted to cyberbullying and trolling. Why would you say that? And what do you believe should be the role of celebrities whose supporters engage in such trolling and cyberbullying of their opponents, particularly given your experience with Mrs. Yul-Edochie?
Well, it was the bullying of the worst order. It was characterized by falsehood. It was characterized by use of fake accounts. It was the contents of the bullying were directed at my person, at my reputation, at our businesses, at our client. It was the worst form of it. So, and it was in clear violation of the law. And even before this bullying intensified, I was actually focused on the bullying against her husband. And I told her, the celebrities have a responsibility. And we see it all the time. It's not enough to say, oh, they're my supporters, I don't care. And this notion of having fans in a divorce case is very unfortunate. We have repeatedly said a divorce case is a very deep, intense personal family dispute with legal consequences, profound legal consequences. It is not a sport. It's not a sport. It's not entertainment. It's not the sort of thing you say we are fans, we are taking sides. That notion of having my fans in a divorce case is so unfortunate and irrational. So, in any case, when a celebrity sees that her supporters are attacking her opponent, so obviously in her favor, presuming they are favoring her, such celebrity has a duty in law to take one or two steps. One, you either address the public, distancing yourself from the activities of those individuals, saying, this doesn't represent me and I don't support it. That is very important, because those who are bullying people in your name are doing it presumably in your interest. They believe they are serving your interest. Making a public statement indicating you do not support it discourages that conduct. That's one. Another thing she could have done would have been to directly address her supporters. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Without you, I wouldn't have made it. But it's very important for us to operate within the law. Therefore, do not attack these people. Do not attack young children of Yul and Judy. Stay away from those things. Let us do it this way. Let us focus on this way. Let us leave it for the court, because the case was already in the court. She could have said, oh no, I want this matter. This matter is already in court, and I'm confident that the court is going to resolve it in accordance with the law. I will therefore urge all of you to please do not attack my husband, my estranged husband, or the new woman, or their children. I will tell you this. Even though this is an evolving area, because we haven't had major lawsuits, but I am sure that these celebrities have responsibility on this matter. I am sure that when lawsuits result based on the actions of your supporters, the court will be scrutinizing whether you had a duty of intervening, a duty of distancing yourself or disclaiming their conduct. Okay? In this particular case, I would say one of the people involved was so bullied that she considered suicide. And also, her supporters bullied the employer of their opponent to a point that they crashed the web infrastructure of a hospital. If I have a second, 1 minute to say this, Daniel. A hospital in the United States had on their website where they had patients review. Their patients would go there and give a review of their experience with that hospital. So the supporters of Mary Yul-Edochie, out of anger, they wanted to penalize a woman working for that employer. So they went into that review section and began to write against the hospital. They will write things like, oh, this hospital is a terrible place. They're hiring mad people. They hired so and so person. If you go to this hospital, you're going to die. These are her supporters, some of them based in Oshodi, Aba, and Onitsha, writing these things on the website of a hospital in the United States. So before you knew it, this hospital was flooded with these extremely negative reviews. And people reading these reviews would not know that the reviews were coming from people who had never been to that hospital. It was so terrible that the hospital was forced to shut down its web applications in order to recalibrate it to avoid that sort of reaction. It cost that company a lot of money. Now, what if that company has sued? Who would they sue? Of course, they are not
They
going to
cannot
sue the
sue people in
woman.
Nigeria
Yeah, they're not
because
going
if
to sue
it's
people
here,
in
they
Nigeria.
already. Yeah.
Good. They will sue me in the United States because I was directing these people. I was talking to them. I was taking responsibilities. And I even made some statements against that individual, which turned out to be false. So they would have sued me, and they would have sued the lady herself, Mary Yul-Edochie, because May Nation, the amorphous group supporting her, we're supporting her. Their name is May Nation, derived from her name. They do a lot of things, so it would be impossible for people to say, oh, no, she's not involved. Let us pursue these amorphous, countless unknown people. No, they will go after her. They will go after me. This is to show you how serious this issue became. It wasn't what they thought. These people in Nigeria, they thought that this was just an argument or banter, or no, this was a very serious, a grave issue affecting a company, involving millions of dollars. So if they are going to file a lawsuit against me, they will prevail, because I certainly made publications that were not accurate, and those publications were based on information I got from the supporters of from her side, and which I believed that I shouldn't believe. Realizing I was mistaken, realizing how dicey this situation was, realizing that she couldn't or she wouldn't intervene in a manner that could lessen the intensity of the problem, I had to start by, taking positions, conveying to the world that we didn't encourage this and it will not continue, and that we acted innocently. I believe that was one of the things that stopped them from suing, really.
That's very, very, very interesting. One funny thing about this episode between DPA and Mrs. Yul-Edochie is that it started as a conflict between a couple, a husband and wife. But today it appears people have forgotten the original conflict, and it now appears to be a matter between DPA and Mrs. Yul-Edochie. Is this an accurate assessment? Because for the past 2 months, and how do you think the exchanges between you and the May Nation have affected the original dispute between that famous actor Yul-Edochie and his ex-wife? Did it help resolve it, or did it complicate the original between both parties?
It's fundamentally changed the dispute, and to some extent, I mean, one can look at it, see some benefits in it, and see some bad side to it. Yes, it affected her. She, before her quarrel with us, or before the breakdown of communication between us, a lot of people saw her as innocent, as a pure victim. But after the fight, quarrel between us, people were able to gain new insight and perspective to the fight. So she is not as innocent as she was perceived, I believe. People now saw that, her failure to understand that attacking DPA will undermine her credibility, because much of the story people heard about her, much of the good things people said about her were stories, narratives we developed. So if our credibility was damaged, it will certainly affect her. So her failure to understand that certainly causes people to question her intelligence overall and her strategy overall. So, but also, and then people are saying, if she could do this, if she could be this cold and indifferent towards the interest of a company like DPA that came out to fight her, then is she really a good person? Is she really a nice person? So those questions are being asked, I'm sure. Good. That is the negative side of it. And also, if her goal was to achieve 100% absolute victory over you, I think that the dispute between her and us undermines her capacity to do that. Because in the dispute between her and us, people are now the issue of the activities of her supporters that she somehow encouraged will play in terms of further litigation in court. I'm sure of that. But also, there is a good side to the quarrel between us. First, it lessens the intensity of the animosity or the anger, the aggression against her husband had been lessened. The attack, all these attacks directed at us, were originally meant for her husband and the other woman. So there was a diversion. Some of the weapons fashioned against them had been diverted to us, giving them some breathing space and creating an opportunity for them to begin to recover from where they were placed. So, and also, there is something we say, permit me to give you this analogy. If you look at the fight between Russia and Ukraine, um, Donald Trump understood that if you don't give Ukraine certain weapons, it will lead to an early resolution of the fight. So for war to continue, people must have certain weapons. If they lose certain weapons, invariably the war will come to an end. DPA had been the backbone of Mrs. Edochie's warfare. We had been a backbone of her ability to counter her husband, her ability to checkmate the supporters of her husband, her ability to minimize and even stop the bullying activities of her husband's supporters. It had been DPA. So, and with us there, it gave them a sense of invincibility, that they had the capacity to push this fight to all extent. And certainly they were doing it, and certainly they're outgunned. You and Judy were outgunned, no doubt. It was essentially because of us. When the DPA withdrew, it was a major weapon of offensive was taken away from Mrs. Yul-Edochie. At this moment, she is relying solely on the outcome of the case in court. That is the divorce case. And you already know that divorce case is not just going to go, it's not going to go beyond the very basic standard relief that could be offered, which is dissolution of marriage, awarding of child custody and child support, and distribution of marital property. That's all the divorce case is going to, the court is going to come to. So on this issue of the cost of women, the issue of equality, or penalizing you, or discrediting you, or knocking him off the stage, or those things are not within the purview of what the court can do. So I think that us withdrawing from her case have somehow confined the case strictly to the court. Now you see she's being trolled from all sides. People that would never have attacked her before when we were there are now attacking her. And I'm sure that as she feels the impact of this attack, it is going to put her in a position to seek compromise and seek early closure. So instead of what would have been a landslide victory against you, it is going to look more like a balanced resolution down the line. So in a way, we are coming to humanity. We are getting to a point where nobody can play God. Both of them now understand that they will look for peace. That's my assessment anyway.
Well, that's interesting. And one other thing we noted is that amidst all these controversies, Nigeria passed a cyberbullying act. While not expressly referring to cyberbullying, it's about cybercrime. And well, because all the elements of cyberbullying, use of electronic device, use of social media, use of online platforms to harass, intimidate, threaten, or humiliate individuals, often repeatedly, including acts of sending abusive messages or sharing embarrassing messages without consent, are all elements described by the key provisions of the Cybercrimes Prohibition and Prevention Act, etc., of 2015. Let me just read briefly a key provision of that section 24 of that act about cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is defined as any willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that will cause a reasonable individual to feel fear, harassment, or emotional distress. It covers repeated online threats, abusive posts, or monitoring through digital means. It explicitly prohibits sending messages that are grossly offensive, false communications intended to cause annoyance, inconvenience, or anxiety. Penalty is up to 7 million naira or 3 years imprisonment. So, what are your thoughts regarding what happened to you and the provisions of the Nigeria Cybercrimes Act of 2015? Do you believe that this act is enough to combat the issue of widespread online cyberbullying?
Well, there are two sides to this. The side that is personal to me, and then my general view on that new law. Yes, I was bullied. They even created an obituary announcement of me, and it made a picture of me being buried and in a cemetery, and lined up people as mourners. So they did this with the fake account. That fake account is called Judy Obashi Autism. We will figure out that account. We have made tremendous progress in identifying that account. I'm not going to reveal here the details of our effort. We are going to get that account by all means, even if it meant suing Facebook to compel Facebook to reveal every information. We have now known that that account also has a Google account. You know, I don't want to go into details. It is important that we identify that individual, and we will. And when we do, there was clear violation of this law. They went beyond what this law envisaged. This is a classic extreme form of violation of this law. And they were doing this as recently as last week. So we're not talking of something that happened too long in the past. So we're going to identify this person for sure. But apart from that, there were the little ones who made silly comments here and there, posted things, posted my bad thing. That bad thing was false. We have demonstrated. And by the way, Elomba, there was a case in the Lagos High Court decided just recently, indicating that once a lawyer files an appeal against the decision of LPDC, it becomes automatic statutory stay. And therefore, that the lawyer can operate completely as if the direction did not occur until there's a determination of his appeal. As you know, I filed an appeal in 2017 within the statutory time frame. It was duly acknowledged, pending in the Supreme Court. So this notion that I could not practice law in Nigeria was absolutely false. So anybody saying that is actually lying, and then repeating these things constitutes a violation of law. One of the annoying reasons or annoying things I had why I don't want to pursue the other people is that even some lawyers did not understand their own law. They took it upon themselves, spreading these lies. It was only in some of their forums, the lawyers' forums, that some lawyers, smarter lawyers, contradicted others. They had wanted to lynch me in their forum. We have a list of lawyers who made extremely terrible arguments against me. But we had others who said, no, you're wrong, because he filed an appeal, and his appeal is pending. So we have that. And then all these people making these allegations that Emeka cannot go to court, he's not going to court. They forgot that under Nigerian law, a CEO of a company cannot be a legal practitioner in court. One lawyer in Anambra State just got suspended for 2 years because he was a lawyer and a real estate agent at the same time. So it's not possible for me to be the CEO of DPA, and then every morning I'll dress up in wig and gown and go to court. Once I start going to court in wig and gown in Nigeria, I will have to resign as CEO of DPA. Very basic thing. But in their malice, in their desire, in this extreme malicious desire to harm me, these people were peddling these stories, peddling it, as if it was so. This is violated the law. Now, let me come to the law generally. That law came at the right time, Elomba. But unfortunately, Nigerian lacks the capacity to enforce it. What do I mean by that? Overwhelming portion of Nigerian population, millions of people are violating this law every day. Indeed, I would say that out of every 3 Nigerians on Facebook, 2 of them are using fake accounts, in addition to their main account. And through these fake accounts, they are bullying people. They are committing atrocities of imagine. So when you now expect Nigerian police to enforce this law, it's not going to happen. What happens is when you have a law that cannot be effectively enforced because too many people are breaking that law, what results is that you have given the police the power, the opportunity to engage in what we call selective prosecutions. So rich people who want to silence people will basically bribe the police, and the police will invoke that cyber law and cyberbullying law against small people. But otherwise, many people will go without remedy because too many people are violating that law. So there is no training. You don't just make these laws and stop. Nigerian police don't have the training. They don't have the capacity. I mean, there was a case of a man who was arrested 2 days ago. Okay, let me show you. He was arrested of insulting a woman. He said the woman her children was a bastard. Said it. So they came to Lagos from Abuja. From Abuja, they came to Lagos, arrested the man, took him to Abuja. We knew they won't prosecute him because it doesn't make sense. If you have to charge him, you have to charge him in Lagos. So why take him from Lagos, go to Abuja, investigate him, and bring him back to try him in Lagos? Who is going to be the officers rendering witness testimony in court? So was there no police department in Lagos that we could have investigated? All police units in Abuja have Lagos branches. The FCCIID Abuja has Lagos branch. Even the IGP has an office in a council house, his annex office. So there was no basis to arrest a man in Lagos for cyberbullying supposedly done in Lagos and take him to Abuja, detain him for 3 days, and set him free. So that's what we're going to have, that we're going to see. I believe that the woman who made the complaint in that case basically bribed the police officers. You know how they operate. I know they get offended when I say this, but I have to be blunt. There's no way you can justify what happened if not bribe. Whenever an officer engages in a conduct so completely out of touch with his training, with the law, the only conclusion I will draw is that the officer was corrupt. Because incompetence or lack of training will not be sufficient to explain such egregious departure from standard norms. So the officers were bribed. They came here, arrested the guy, shook him up in Abuja, and left him there. They flew him to Abuja, paid for by the complainant. But when they released him in Abuja, they released him to the streets. And the man had to be borrowing money to take a bus. And he would take a bus, maybe get kidnapped by kidnappers in Kogi State. And that's what we're going to see. That law, if it could be enforced properly, in other words, if I were the IG, I would develop a guideline because the statute alone is not sufficient. It's not detailed enough. You have to develop a guideline that instructs the officers, that sets standards when you have to prosecute, when you have to warn, how you have to monitor and track. All those things supposed to be in a guideline. I don't think that Nigerian law enforcement agencies are prepared to enforce this law. Now, let me tell you something before I end up. Even the DSS, in one of the cases I was familiar with, somebody complained against somebody, and do you know that the DSS called the person back and told her how to write her petition in order to implicate the cyberbullying law? Okay, and when the DSS was criticized, the DSS threatened to prosecute a person on cyberbullying law because of what he said against the DSS. In other words, the DSS wanted to benefit, to be protected by cyberbullying laws. So you're going to see that sort of abuse, and that is my concern. Otherwise, this law is very important. If they don't enforce that law, if they don't develop a way to enforce this cyberbullying law, Daniel, I'm going to tell you, in the next 2 years, cyberbullying is going to become one of the leading causes of death in Nigeria. Absolutely, because things are happening. People can do anything. They can accuse you of having HIV and publish it everywhere and say you're HIV positive. And without any, okay, by the way, I didn't tell you something else they did against me. They created an EFCC wanted list, put my picture in it, declared me wanted by the EFCC. They disseminated it everywhere. You understand it? Of course, it was initiated by the fake account, but somebody made a mistake of repeating it. And that person who repeated it has her real name and order, so we're going to pursue that person. I'm just trying to tell you, what if I were not a strong person? What if I were an ordinary person and all of a sudden people begin to see me, my picture, wanted by the EFCC? That could be disorienting. Of course, if my clients were to see these things, that would be terrifying because many people thought it was true. Many people began to call me and said, oh, what's going on? What is going on? And I had to tell them, no, I'm not being wanted by the EFCC. This is just a caricature from those people. So cyberbullying law is the most important law in Nigeria at this moment, but it has to be enforceable. It has to be in a format where the Nigerian police and the law enforcement agencies as a whole can effectively enforce this law against people. Now they don't, they can't.
Right. One interesting aspect of this saga is that you founded the Due Process Advocates. Can you remind our viewers again when you founded these advocacy organization?
Very well, Daniel. I'm glad you're taking me to this. You see, Elomba is probably familiar with my life in 2011 when the EFCC detained me in their custody in Abuja. I got in there. I was detained for 3 months because of manipulations, abuses, and corruption. EFCC was extremely corrupt under Farida Waziri. You know that. So when I got into the cell, I met a lot of people. The EFCC cell in Abuja had average of 25 people at any given time. And about 4 people leaves every week and 4 new people come in every week. So when I was there, I realized, to my greatest shock, the style, the method the EFCC used to pursue suspects. By the way, as you know, EFCC officers were mostly from the Nigerian police. They were just taken from Nigerian police. So they continued the process. Their investigation method was 90% based on confessions. The only way the EFCC had to have any chance of prosecuting anybody successfully was to get a confession. So when they arrest people, they deny them access to a lawyer, keep them in detention for weeks, and keep telling them that, oh, you are the one holding yourself, or if you just confess, we release you. And truly, when these people confess, EFCC will release them and ask them to be reporting every 2 weeks. They will come for the first day of reporting. Second, the third appointment, they will take them to court and use their confessions to convict them. So when I found this situation in this cell, I was forced by circumstances to become the lawyer to represent and advising these inmates. I began to tell them the implications of making confessions. I began to tell them that the EFCC had no power to keep them indefinitely in detention. And I began to tell them about their rights to say, to remain silent. So all of a sudden, the game changed. EFCC will notice that the inmates arrested were now talking about their rights to silence. And they began to wonder, who is telling them these things? They said, oh, that must be that lawyer in the cell. They called me the American barrister. They will say, the American barrister is the one causing this trouble. So I took this responsibility seriously. I was helping these inmates. I began to get them lawyers from outside. So when I had my visitors, when my own lawyers came to visit me, I would tell them to get me a lawyer for so person. So the next day, a lawyer will show up at the EFCC office and give a name of a detainee and say, I'm here for him. I want to talk to him. So this became a problem for the EFCC. And then at the same time, I was writing from the EFCC detention center, and my messages were being smuggled out. And thank God there was a Lombard.com, because a Lombard.com made sure that my story got to the world. Okay, so I was able to report live, more or less live, what was going on in EFCC. Everything was done to silence me by the EFCC. They stopped allowing pen and paper in the cell. I kept getting pen and paper in the cell nonetheless. They will come every day to search me. They'll search everywhere. In the EFCC cell in Abuja then, one segment, there was one room called the chapel where Christians prayed. There was another room at the other end called the mosque where Muslims prayed. So these EFCC officers will come into the cell, search everywhere, search the Christian chapel. There was one place they did not search, the mosque. They were not searching the mosque. So they assumed that me being a Christian will not hide my writings in the mosque. So one day our Muslim inmates had a meeting and called me and said, hey, barrister, come, be hiding your thing here in the mosque. They won't search here. That was how I began to hide my pen and paper and writing in that mosque. So for weeks, the EFC had no idea. They would come and search, throw everything upside down, no pen, no paper. So because they did not go to the mosque, then eventually we devised other ways. I was smuggling my documents through inmates who were being discharged, who were being released, because they will come down after the final interview, they sign the papers, they tell them, okay, go to the cell, bring your upbringing, your belongings. They'll come to the cell and say, barrister, I'm going today. So write anything you want to write. So I'll write quickly on a piece of paper. If I've already written it, I'll go to the mosque, get it, and give them. And they will go with it. Once they got out of the cell, my people were waiting outside. They would take this thing to cyber cafe, type it up, and forward it to Lomba. This was going on for weeks. Then the EFCC figured that those inmates being released were the ones smuggling my things. So they began to search them. So, but there were EFCC staff who were informing me too, who supported me. They told me, barrister, they'll be searching anybody leaving, from tomorrow. So when we realized that I was searching them, we stopped giving them, I stopped giving them a piece of paper. We didn't know what to do, but we figured a way quickly. Before an inmate will leave the cell, he will take off his shirt, turn his back, and I'll use a pen and write on his back, write 2-page notes in 10 minutes on his back and page. So they'll put on a shirt. When they got out, EFCC will search and frisk them. They will not find anything. They'll let them go. Once they get out, they will go straight to cyber cafe, take off their shirts, and somebody will write it. Now, but the drama didn't end there, Daniel. When the EFCC saw they could not stop Elomba from writing, and Elomba was writing exactly what happened. Sometimes Elomba will report that they came at a particular time this morning by 3 a.m. to search, and they will see it in Elomba.com. They knew, no, this must be true. This is not a guess. How did Elomba know that they searched by 3 o'clock? So they put me in the female wing of the cell, because there was a female wing and male wing. So they put me there so that I would not, so they could stop the smuggling of information. Before they took me to the female wing, they went there and told the ladies that there is a man coming here, but they will lock him up in one box. The cell was open, but there's one box where the lock. They said, we're going to keep him there, but the man is mad, dangerous. Don't talk to him. If he talks to you, don't talk to him. So the first night they brought me there, after they locked us up and left, I tried to say hello to the ladies. They ran away because they were told I was a madman. They moved further away from my side of the cell. Even though I was locked up, I couldn't come out, but they still were scared of me. Then the next morning, a senior officer of FCC came to talk to me in my cell, and these ladies were watching. When a senior officer came, and the senior officer called me barrister, and he spoke to me, and I spoke, and he responded, yes, sir, when I talked to him. So these ladies were surprised to hear me speak. They said, is this the madman speaking with American accent? And they were answering to him. Immediately they left, because in the daytime, these guards are coming in. It was in the night. In the night, immediately they locked us up. Those ladies all ran in front of my cell. They were so curious to find out, okay, what happened. So I interviewed them all, knew about their cases, and I educated them to stop making confessionary statements with the EFCC. I told them that whatever, it doesn't matter what they tell you, your confession will be used against you. So just tell them you don't want to talk until you speak to a lawyer. So all of a sudden, the EFCC noticed that the ladies have developed the same thing as the male inmates, because they are now asserting their rights. They are now asking for lawyers, refusing to talk. So the EFCC, they were worried. They said, this barrister is dangerous. This American barrister is dangerous. He's spoiling our work. They couldn't prosecute any case. They can't convict anybody without a confession. They don't have the capacity of tracing anything. Forget all those things they say. I mean, they might have changed now, but then they lack this capacity. They get you, suffer you, intimidate you, you confess, then they go to court with their confession. That was what they did. So these women changed. But you know the dramatic thing, Daniel? How could I smuggle information from the female cell? No way. I explained to those girls, they understood. I was surprised. The next day, when a lady came and said, Barry, I'm about to leave. I want you to write a note on my back. A lady provided, pulled down her dress for me to write on her back. I wrote on her back. That was part of the note that reached longer. So a lady pulled up her tie, even though I was locked up, but there was a god, my hand could come out. Okay. A lady came, pulled up her clothes, presented her tie. I wrote a note that was typed and sent to lumber.com. All these things will feature in my memoir. I detailed exactly what transpired. Okay, so
now, but my question was coming to the due process. Thank you for this background. It's very, very an interesting drama.
I was coming. Okay, let me
Okay.
give that to you. Let me give that to you. From my detention, I found out that I could help inmates without being their lawyer in court. I found out that I was actually more able to help more inmates at once than if I was their lawyer in court. Because I had, at any given time, 20 people in the cell. I was arranging for lawyers for them. I would speak to people, they'll get a lawyer, we pay the lawyer. I sold 2 Land Cruisers while in detention in order to pay lawyers for these people. So that was the origin of DPA. I found out that I am more effective in helping people if I don't have to go to court with one person. Because when I'm in court with one person, Daniel, I am facing one judge and maybe 15 people in court. That's my audience. There's a limited audience. And as a lawyer, arguing in court, I'm not allowed to come and then start writing on social media about what transpired in court. However, if I operated in DPA, I had wider audience. I could address the work, make more act through DPA than I could make in a court of law. So since then, right from that experience, DPA was born. Because when I came out of the detention in EFCC, I continued to help inmates in detention, and new inmates who arrived after I had left were told about me. And we now had a continuous link with the people in the cell. We continue. So, as you see in my book, I handled 30 EFCC cases as counsel when I came out of EFCC cell. Some of them were those cases I started my cellmates that I now took over as counsel. So all these things are documented in my system. But through DPA, I am able to help people without putting on wig and gown. Even when I was detaining PJ, I helped a lot of people. It is an innovative process because as I speak today, we have hundreds of people DPA is helping, and I don't have to go to court at all because we have good lawyers for them.
Now, a very interesting story. Another interesting thing is that DPA's due process advocacy operations have primarily focused on supporting women. And now here you are battling Mrs. Yul-Edochie, who you tried to help. So did your experience with Mrs. Yul-Edochie influence DPA's philosophy or mission in any way? Did it
Yes.
impact on what maybe due process thinking, oh, what's the point?
Yes, yes. No, no, you're absolutely right. It was, as I described what was happening, I said that I gained clarity. The clarity of it was, you see, we had taken almost a parochial position that women were the only victim. And we took that position, defended women. I don't regret it because clearly there is significant power imbalance between men and women in Nigeria. Economically, women are disadvantaged. Even the law doesn't favor women. Physically, they're disadvantaged. Culturally, they're disadvantaged. Religious-wise, women are disadvantaged. They are told to submit. And then customary law and culture told them to accept polygamy, one-sided polygamy, enjoyed by men but not enjoyed by women. So women needed special protection. So I don't regret the fact that we started with women. However, men also need protection. DPA's operation should not be so gender focused. That was one of the things I learned in the course of this problem over Ms. Yul-Edochie's case. Because, of course, we were attacked very viciously, mainly by women. Okay, and they almost, and we wondered, these are the people we're helping. But you know, Daniel, being a professional means that I have to look at things dispassionately. I didn't want to develop any phobia or anger towards women. It's not a gender thing, it is a human thing. Okay, so I see our work, I see the issue of justice and injustice, oppression as a human challenge, not a gender challenge. DPA is shifting philosophically from being gender focused. We are really looking at injustice regardless of gender. We are opening up to listen to men, to hear their challenges and see how we can help them. It doesn't mean that we think less of women. It doesn't mean we are withdrawing from women. No, what we are doing is to expand our work to accommodate concerns of men as well. And by the way, something else people didn't know, it was actually in the family law aspect of DPA work that we were focused on women. In terms of our work on police brutality, our clients that are mainly men, it's mainly men that are victims of police brutality more than women. But when it comes to domestic violence, women are victims. So a lot of people forget that DPA's work is not restricted to gender, to domestic violence or family law. We are dealing with police brutality. Indeed, that was where we started. It wasn't until the case of Chacha, that we began to look into domestic violence as a problem. And now DPA has since branched into landlord-tenant disputes. We now have rent mediation. We now have a way of helping people. There are many things that happen in Nigeria that will shock you, Elomba. For instance, landlords don't give you written tenancy agreement. They take your money for 1 year, but no written agreement, no tenancy agreement. And people come in here and say, oh, landlord did this, landlord did that. Then we ask them, what was he supposed to do? Then he was supposed to do this and that. I said, where is the tenancy agreement? That's where everything's supposed to be. And they said, he didn't give us tenancy agreement. So we're now relying on receipts or evidence of payment to construct a 1-year tenancy lease agreement. So we now have that. And our newest, this will interest you, Elonda, our newest department, the newest department in DPA, we're still building it, is our anti-cyberbullying unit. We decided to take on cyberbullying as a serious concern, and we're doing it. And by the way, for your information, I have written to a unit, a cyberbullying center in Harvard, because I will be visiting them very soon and possibly set up a partnership and even do my doctoral research on cyberbullying, cybercrime and cyberbullying. I'm telling you, it is the greatest threat to law and order now, especially in a country like Nigeria with weak institutions, with weak accountability, and the culture that was not really developed like others in terms of how should people be responsible, how should people behave. Nigeria is so divided ethnically, religiously, gender-wise, and the cyberspace becomes a place where people feel anonymous, they could do anything they want, and it is extremely dangerous. So I will be working on it personally, but also DPA is developing a new center in the area.
Right. Thank you very much. We are gradually coming to the end of this interview. But before we go, people will be wondering, who really is Emeka Ugwuonye? What do you have to say briefly in 1 minute?
Well, thank you. I think you preempt my memoir. My memoir is 515 pages long. And yet, it started from the time I was leaving secondary school, age 18, meaning that if I were to put everything in, it will span into 1,000 pages. But I am born in Enugu, schooled in Uniben. That's why I call Bendel State, Edo State, my second state. Spent 4 years of my critical age there. Became a lawyer 33 years ago. Came to a law school, Lagos. Studied there. Got called to the bar in Nigeria in 1992. That was exactly 33 years ago. That was when I got called to the bar. Then worked for Chevron and Texaco. I worked under Dr. Emeka and then under Tikereshe. And then I left Nigeria, went to Harvard, studied at Harvard, graduated, got employed at Harvard, and then worked at Harvard for a while. I was young, I was 27 when I began to teach at Harvard. And I also doubled as an advisor, policy advisor to Harvard Institute for International Development. From there, what I wanted, Daniel, now this is what people don't realize. I didn't want to practice law. What I wanted was to be a venture capitalist. I wanted to go into venture operations. I wanted to make millions of dollars because I saw people who did it and they were fantastic guys. So then from there, I had to leave teaching. I left teaching at Harvard and went to World Bank. From World Bank, things led to things. I set up a law. I then became a law firm in New York, Washington, and Maryland. Ultimately, I represented Absalom Abubakar in the Abiola case and handled top cases for the Nigerian government in the United States for almost 10 years. Then we had a dispute over embassy property and dispute with an ambassador, resulting in there was $27 million for which the Senate wrote to me. I believe Senate wrote a lumber. I still have that invitation. Then that was the origin of my fight with Nigerian government. And they fought me bitterly. EFCC tried me for 10 years and lost all their cases. I became radicalized, as I explained. From their detention, I was transformed. I was no longer the government lawyer. I was no longer the government friend. I saw injustice. I saw abuse in this country. And I decided to challenge these abuses. And it got me into further problem and further alienation with the government. They used everything against. They even used the bar. They used the bar association. Somebody said there was a petition against me. And I said this to Lumba.com. I hope Lumba will investigate this someday. There was no complaint against me. It was fabricated. There was no witness against me. There was no testimony against me. But the man who led the LPDC at that time was a man who had a problem with his wife, and his wife died the day she was to open her case in the divorce case. She died. Anywhere else in the world, her death would have been investigated and the man would have been a suspect. But the man was so powerful that the woman couldn't even get a lawyer to defend her because the man was so powerful in the bar. So when DPA was set up and we began to talk of rights of women, I didn't know that I made an enemy. I didn't know that was what happened. And even after the LPDC made their ruling, of course, under the law, their ruling wouldn't have taken effect because I had my appeal. And the law. The same man would have connived with that woman, Gertrude, and they wrote a letter and said there was no appeal. They knew that appeal would stay the LPDs. They claimed there was no appeal, but there was an appeal. I had a number, and the appeal continued. So the corruption in it is mind-boggling. But I don't want to talk about it now. I just want to, watch events develop. And unfortunately, that is what the average poor people in Nigeria are using against me. They don't know that they are greater victims of corruption in Nigeria. They don't know that they needed somebody like me to fight against corruption that had kept them poor. So that's the irony. And as you tell me now, whether what happened with Mrs. Yul-Edochie affected my feelings towards women, you should actually be concerned more whether the events in Nigeria affected my feelings towards the poor, whether it is worth fighting for the Nigerian poor or to just leave them. After all, I live in the United States, my children live in the United States. I really don't supposed to be concerned too much about Nigerians, if not from altruistic point of view that I'm trying to help people. Yet, the poor people, now all these people abusing me on social media, who are there? These are the poor people. These are the poorest of the poor, the people you want to help. So what if I say, because at some point I began to think that, Daniel, I used to blame Nigerian leaders. I used to think that Nigerian leaders were callous, very cruel, very uncaring about the poor people. But if I judge by the experience I had with the bullying on social media at the hands of the poor, I began to think that these Nigerian leaders were very kind, actually, because given this sort of people, you can't expect anything good. I began to think so, but I constantly have to check myself, and I say, don't let these behaviors undermine your fundamental principle. Don't let their actions. I remember what Jesus said when he was being crucified. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I have taken that attitude, really. But so much is going on. That's Emeka Ugwuonye. I am determined. DPA is in Nigeria, DPA is in the United States, and we're going to extend and do more and do more. That's what we hope to do. Okay?
So will the experience make you to leave Facebook as some people are speculating?
Yes. It is going to affect my presence. Nobody can leave Facebook, really, because Coca-Cola is in Facebook, everybody is in Facebook. What is going to happen is this tendency of being there to respond to arguments and trolls and counter and banter and try to explain myself.
It's not really what it is, it?
No, it's not. It's just not going to happen anymore. Because I now have admin team. The admin team before the beginning of this interview, you must have noticed I was calling the admin person to set this whole thing up for me remotely. So what is going to happen is I no longer have to go to the comment section of my post. My post will be drafted and I send it to them, my admin team. They will post it. They edit it sometime and take some of the things that are very provocative. They take it off. I have a very wonderful admin team leader. He takes off things that are controversial, takes off where I mention people's names. She takes it up, edits it, and she posts it. Okay? And then we have a segment designated to handle Instagram and TikTok. Those ones will re-edit my post to fit into Instagram mode and TikTok mode, which emphasizes video and pictures. So the only place where I'm going to be posting directly henceforth will be on my X account, which I want to build up. Okay, I am now on a premium, maximum premium rate for Instagram. For X. I will be posting on X, and my admins will take my post and adjust it for them to repost on Facebook and the other handles. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ephraim Emeka Ugwuonye, for telling us about a life committed to justice, a
Thank you.
trained lawyer that eventually dabbled into. You should have left civil advocacy for us, but then.
Well, I want to commend the Lumba. The Lumba has been there from the very beginning. When I recall, I think my memoir will further highlight it. Without a lumber, I wouldn't have been able to, I would have been depressed in EFCC. The only thing that kept me alive in EFCC and made it possible for me to endure the conditions there was that I know that each morning something will get to lumber. And the lumber will publish it. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Well, I thank you for your kind words too. Once again, our viewers, this is Diaspora Digital Media, hearing from the most eminent attorney himself, Mr. Emeka Ugwuonye. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.